Dominion is just one of 3 major companies providing voting systems to America. But Dominion captured headlines when it was discovered it had glitched 6,000 votes, giving Biden a fraudulent win. This was not an isolated event. In 2016, Antrim County, Michigan affirmed its Republican loyalties by voting Trump 62%, beating Clinton by 4,000 votes. Fast forward 4 years, and Antrim County was shocked to find itself voting Joe Biden over Trump by 3,000 votes, a complete flip from the last presidential election. Something was very wrong. When the county set to work with a manual recount, they discovered a ghastly error. 6,000 Trump votes were accidentally tallied for Biden. RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel held a press conference noting a litany of irregularities in Michigan. But when it came to Antrim County, the irregularity was potentially much bigger in scale.
When they inquired with the clerk, they were told it was a software issue and it was corrected. But now we know that 47 counties use that same software.
It was certainly odd. Republicans wanted an investigation to ensure no more such mistakes happened elsewhere. However, Michigan's Democrat Secretary of State was quick to pronounce such concerns as ridiculous, immediately denouncing any suspicion of technical foul play. Quote, "The software did not cause a misallocation of votes. It was a result of user human error." See? No need to investigate. After all, it's 2020 and software errors are impossible, right?
I'm here to tell you that the electronic voting machines Americans got to solve the problem of voting integrity, they turned out to be an awful idea.
One vote for McCain.
That's because people like me can hack them all too easily.
That was some professor out of Michigan back in 2018 in the New York Times. Ignore that. The system Michigan Democrats don't want Republicans to investigate, the system part of what DHS proclaimed, quote, the most secure in American history? Meet Dominion Voting Systems. A Canadian firm, Dominion is one of 3 companies providing 90% of America's voting systems. Dominion serves 28 U.S. states, including battlegrounds like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, all of Georgia, and Nevada. Incidentally, Michigan was not the only battleground state to experience problems with Dominion. Georgia went all in with Dominion, buying 30,000 machines installed across the state. Just 9 months before the general election, Georgia's Secretary of State boasted of his state's partnership with Dominion to install all these new machines.
Dominion and the Secretary of State's office worked very closely together on making sure we had the staff here to get these things put through.
A few months later, in Georgia's June primaries, Dominion proved to have a few hiccups. Don't take it from us. Here's PBS.
The poll pads took as long as 30 hours to download the voter database, displayed the wrong races, and would randomly shut down. And the power-hungry ballot marking devices blew circuit breakers in numerous locations. Poll workers, many of whom had no hands-on training because of the pandemic, were often befuddled by the new technology.
Indeed, even by the general election 5 months later, Georgia was still in trouble.
They have not certified the elections, including 2 of the most populous in the state, between technical issues.
Let's begin with Liza Lucas. She's live at Gwinnett County's elections office in Lawrenceville, where thousands of votes are in limbo because of a software issue.
There is an issue in Gwinnett County, as officials have told us, that 60,000 Gwinnett County ballots are in limbo after a software issue, and this is according to the communications director of Gwinnett County.
While all of this plays out before our eyes, Republicans demand investigations, but government officials demand we look away.
There have not been any evidence of anything that would undermine the validity of this election, and it's time to move forward.
Meanwhile, the Trump legal team under former New York Mayor and prosecutor Rudy Giuliani disagreed. Antrim County put Dominion systems front and center. Now we must dig deeper.
Now we've got to look at how often did it break down in other parts of the state. And when you look back on the history of Dominion, which is a Canadian firm, it's made mistakes in Canadian elections similar to that.
The Trump legal team's Dominion wing is led by General Michael Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, who has long warned Americans the dangers of our election systems relying on foreign software. Mind you, no one is claiming that Dominion is solely responsible for the fiasco and the vote irregularities that defined the 2020 general election. But when we return, prepare to be stunned when you find out just how easy it is to manipulate votes through Dominion, why one major state deemed Dominion dangerously easy to hack, and how one hacker read the user guide flagging stunning questions for the feds. We'll be right back.
Methods of communication have changed throughout history with the advancement of technology. Since first declaring his candidacy in 2015, President Trump has relied on Twitter to share his thoughts directly with the American people. But the 45th president was not the first president to rely on the technology of the times to get his message out. Calvin Coolidge made the first presidential radio address in 1923, making his voice the most heard of any man in history. This was the first time people across the country could hear the president speak at the same time, all from the comfort of their own homes. A decade later, this evolved into Franklin D. Roosevelt's fireside chats, where the president could explain his policies with the feeling of a friendly conversation in the form of an evening radio broadcast. Television was still a very new technology in 1947, but that didn't stop Harry Truman from breaking ground as the first president to have a live televised address from the White House. This ushered in a new relationship between the White House and the media. Now, not only could Americans hear their president, they could see him as if they were in the very same room. The late 90s saw the rise of the internet, and Bill Clinton saw this as an opportunity to speak directly with citizens. Clinton held the first presidential web chat in 1999, giving anyone with an internet connection a chance to send questions to the president as the world watched live on TV. Calvin Coolidge believed speaking directly to the press was the best way to bypass Congress to speak with the people. By using Twitter, President Donald Trump modernized this idea for today's population. Like so many before him, President Trump is using the technology of the times, making sure his message is heard clearly and directly by Americans all over.
No voting system is perfect. Here are the heads of the top 3 voting systems telling Congress as much.
Is there any method of voting that's 100% secure?
No. No.
No. They go on to say their voting systems are mostly safe. But here's a Senate letter from December 2019 slamming these 3 companies. Election security experts have noted for years that our nation's election systems and infrastructure are under serious threat. The Senate letter then highlights how the top 3 voting systems, ES&S, Hart InterCivic, and Dominion voting systems, quote, have long skimped on security in favor of convenience, leaving voting systems across the country prone to security problems. The lawmakers who wrote this letter? None other than Senators Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Ron Wyden, and Congressman Mark Pocan, all Democrats. 1 year later, now that America is asking whether Dominion tampered with our votes in Joe Biden's favor, where are these Democrats now? In the last 2 years, Dominion aggressively marketed itself to every state in the union, and while Georgia went all in and lived to regret it, one state gave it a Texas-sized thumbs down. Upon testing Dominion machines and its accompanying systems, the state of Texas concluded Dominion was too, quote, fragile and error-prone and could not be trusted for safe and secure elections.
There is only one party in America that opposes voter ID. One party in America that opposes verifying signatures, citizenship, residency, eligibility. There is only one party in America trying to keep observers out of the count room. And that party, my friends, is the Democrats.
Way beyond what people think, including a very, very dangerous foreign company, a company that has close ties with Venezuela and therefore China, and uses Venezuelan company software that's been used to steal elections in other countries. I mean, I don't think people have any idea of the dimension of the national security problem that Dominion creates. And the software that they use is done by a company called Smartmatic, It's a company that was founded by Chavez and by Chavez's two allies who still own it. It's been used to cheat in elections in South America. It was banned by the United States about a decade ago. It's come back now as a subcontractor to other companies. It sort of hides in the weeds. But Dominion sends everything to Smartmatic. Can you believe it? Our votes are sent overseas. They're sent to someplace else, some other country. Why do they leave our country? Yeah. And this company has tried and true methods for fixing elections, like calling a halt to the voting when you're running too far behind. They've done that in prior elections. The chairman of Smartmatic is a close business associate of George Soros. I have to tell you more. Finally, you want to get down to the votes, let's just pick Pennsylvania. We have identified 632,000. It's enough to have the president win the state by 300,000. Which is actually what he wanted by, right? If you get that Smartmatic machine out. Now we move on to Detroit. In Detroit, we have evidence that 100,000 ballots were brought in at 4:30 in the morning and counted. And to the extent that our witnesses, and there are 4 of them, saw it, and one of them is an ex-employee of Dominion, according to them, every single ballot was for Biden. And not only that, whatever ballots they could see, because these weren't Republicans, so they could get closer. Every ballot they could see, it just had Biden's name on it. Nobody else, not even another Democrat. Now, why does that happen?
We are collecting evidence now from various whistleblowers that are aware of substantial sums of money being given to family members of state officials who bought this software because they know that they can win the election if they are using that software. Well, the CIA and the FBI and other government organizations have received multiple reports of wrongdoing and failures and vulnerabilities in this company's product. Their own manual, if you sat down and read it, would explain how and why no honest person would use this system.
トランプ陣営の弁護士シドニー・パウエル氏は16日、メディアを通して重要証人の宣誓供述書を発表しました。この証人はベネズエラ前大統領の護衛を担当していました。証言の中で証人は、電子投票システムのスマートマティックは、ベネズエラの前独裁者、ウゴ・チャベスが選挙結果を改ざんできるようにするために作られたと述べています。
He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez.
Is the culmination of what has been over a 4-year effort to overthrow this president, to first deny his candidacy, the election, but then to overthrow his presidency. This looks like the effort to carry out an end game in the effort against him. Do you concur?
Oh, absolutely, and it's been organized and conducted with the help of Silicon Valley people, the big tech companies, the social media companies, and even the media companies. And I'm going to release the Kraken.
Party. You don't take these positions because you want an honest election. You don't oppose an audit of the vote because you want an accurate count. You don't oppose our efforts at sunlight and transparency because you have nothing to hide. You take these positions because you are welcoming fraud and you are welcoming illegal voting. Our position is clear. We want to protect the franchise of the American people. We want an honest, accurate, lawful count. We want maximum sunlight. We want maximum transparency. We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be discarded. Unlike our opponents, we have nothing to hide. The integrity of our election matters. The Constitution of the United States matters. What we have seen across the country is Democrat officials systematically trying to do an end run around the Constitution to tip the scales of the election in their favor. They have taken a global pandemic and turned it into a nationwide electoral epidemic. They have taken, based on what they call a natural disaster, they have used that and turned this into a national disaster.